Good day, and welcome to today's live broadcast from the USDA radio studios in Washington, D.C., featuring the Chief of the Natural Resources Conservation Service, Jason Weller, the Executive Co-Director of the Xerces Society, Scott Black, and General Mills Chief Sustainability Officer, Jerry Lynch. Reporters and members of the media wishing to ask a question of any of our guests after opening remarks, please press star 1 on your telephone touch-tone pad. And to begin today's program, it's my pleasure to introduce Scott Black of the Xerces Society to kick things off. Scott?
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Rob. And thanks to all the reporters who are in attendance as well. My name is Scott Hoffman Black, and I'm the Executive Director here at the Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation. And I'm just really delighted to be here today to announce the new partnership between General Mills, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the Xerces Society to help pollinators and the farmers for which these small but important animals provide an essential service. The Xerces Society is the oldest and largest conservation organization in the world. We currently have 15 conservation specialists working closely with farmers, food industry leaders, community organizations, and government agencies. And this includes 4 joint Xerces, USDA, NRCS biologist positions based in regional offices around the country. The reason we're here today is because pollinators are vital to our food systems and our economy. Pollinators, mostly bees, provide about 1/3 of the food we eat in North America alone, and they're responsible for over 25 billion in agricultural production each year. They pollinate such crops such as fruits, nuts, and vegetables on which we really rely for our essential vitamins and minerals. Without pollinators, we would have food, but it'd be much less varied and less tasty, a diet primarily of grains such as wheat, corn, and rice. When most people think about pollinators, they think of honeybees, and honeybees are indeed vital to American agriculture. But what many people don't realize is that we have 3,600 species of native bees in the U.S. These bees come in every shape and size, from large fuzzy bumblebees to tiny nondescript sweat bees. And these native bees are essential to our agricultural systems as well. Unfortunately, bees and other pollinators are in decline. Over the last several years, beekeepers have lost between 35 and 40% of their hives each year. An analysis by the Xerces Society has shown that about 1/4 of our bumblebees are at risk of extinction in North America. And butterflies, including the iconic monarch butterfly, have seen dramatic declines as well. The really neat thing about this partnership is it's going to address the core issues related to decline of these animals and will really also help the farmers that rely on them. It's helping both the pollinators and the farmers. Pollinators need 3 things to survive and thrive: an abundance of flower-rich habitat on which to feed season long, places to nest, or in the case of butterflies, a host plant for caterpillars, and a refuge from pesticides. This partnership will help farmers and other partners to meet all 3 of these habitat needs on hundreds of thousands of acres of farms across the U.S. This habitat will bring in additional benefits: natural pest suppression due to the beneficial insects it'll also support. These habitats also support game birds, songbirds, improve water quality, so they really do provide multiple benefits. So through this new partnership being announced today, I want to thank General Mills and the NRCS because the Xerces Society, with this funding, will be able to work with the NRCS to expand upon our existing collaboration, increasing the number of joint NRCS-Xerces partner biologists in several regions of the country: the Midwest, the Northeast, and California. So Xerces is honored to be part of this important effort, and we really do thank our partners here. Now I'd like to introduce Jerry Lynch, who's the Chief Sustainability Officer at General Mills.
Thanks, Scott, and good afternoon, everybody. We really appreciate you all taking the time to call in and learn more about this work. We're really excited about this partnership and the work that we're going to do together to support farmers who want to create more habitat for pollinators. At General Mills, we take a lot of care with the ingredients that is in our food, and that includes how those ingredients are grown, the impact they have on the environment, and the lives of the people who grow them. It's all part of making food that people love. The ingredients we use depend on a healthy environment, and so the right thing for the planet is also the right thing for our business. Investments that foster stronger ecosystems have a beneficial impact on quality and availability of ingredients that we use. Pollinators, like bees and butterflies, are a vital part of most ecosystems' overall health. We want to support farmers who want to strengthen their farming ecosystems for their sake and for the planet and for the food we make. Pollinators are responsible for a third of the food that we eat, as Scott mentioned, and most of the food that we make at General Mills contains fruits or nuts or vegetables or other ingredients that require pollination, as well as, of course, honey. So healthy and abundant bee populations are a priority for us. Our consumers care a lot about how their food is grown. Investments like these are one more reason that they love our food. And some of the brands that are extremely close to this particular work include Annie's, Cascadian Farm, Honey Nut Cheerios, and Muir Glen. We hope that by partnering with NRCS and Xerces, who work tirelessly to protect pollinator habitat, that we can have meaningful impact on over 100,000 acres of pollinator habitat. We have a history of supporting pollinators. To date, we've invested more than $4 million since 2011 to support pollinator and biodiversity efforts, and this latest investment doubles the impact through 2021. In addition to investing in habitat, we fund research to understand the decline of honeybees, invest to conserve and expand bee habitats, and work, most importantly, with our suppliers to improve the health and effectiveness of bees as pollinators of things like almonds and tomatoes. So now I'd like to turn it over to NRCS Chief Jason Weller.
Well, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason Weller. I serve as Chief of the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And I, too, am very excited about and appreciative of this new partnership we're launching today. It builds upon the great relationship and partnership we have with the Xerces Society, as well as with the partnership we have with General Mills in a lot of different regions of the country. And this being specifically focused on improving pollinator health and providing great technical assistance for farmers and ranchers across the country. And so from our perspective, why this is valuable, if you look at, on a continental scale, who owns and manages the land, nationally, private landowners manage upwards of 70% of the total continent. And east of the Mississippi, upwards of 95% of the lands in states east of the Mississippi are again, managed and owned by private landowners. So if you care about the long-term capacity not only to grow food and fiber, which we depend upon for a growing world, but also the quality of our environment, the health of our forests and waters, the health of our soils, and in this case, the health of our ecosystems that support pollinators, you really have to work. You have no choice but to work with those private landowners. And those private landowners are predominantly farmers and ranchers. And so this partnership, very proud to be partnering with General Mills to be matching our resources one-to-one. So NRCS over the next 5 years is going to be investing $2 million into this relationship that will then help hire the Xerces Society to build the Xerces Society's capacity to employ professionals out in the field. And these men and women are going to be working side by side with the Natural Resource Conservation Service employees out in the field offices and our state offices. And the focus is going to be on helping farmers and ranchers, providing top-quality, cutting-edge expertise and technical assistance to work with individual producers, to provide site-specific conservation planning solutions on how to incorporate appropriate pollinator habitat into their operations, whether it's a ranching livestock operation or into a row crop operation. There's always room on the operation for pollinator habitat. So depending on their climate, their cropping system, their soils, these professionals are going to really help those farmers identify the appropriate planning and management techniques to ensure good quality habitat. But then also on a larger scale, on a regional scale, again, different climates, different cropping systems, different regions of the country, helping my colleagues within NRCS identify appropriate plannings and appropriate management techniques that they can then incorporate and use when they work on their own with farmers and ranchers. So it's an outreach and education component. It's technical assistance one-on-one with farmers and ranchers, and it's also internal capacity building, enhancing NRCS's scientific expertise and ultimately the type of services we can offer farmers and ranchers. We here at NRCS on our own by ourselves, we'll never have the resources to meet all the needs and demand from producers. And so we're always looking for ways to how to leverage our scarce public resources with the private sector. In this case, working with great partners like General Mills and the Xerces Society, I think this is going to really expand our reach and our impact, help make a difference for the health of the broader habitat and specifically with pollinators, but also really make a difference for production agriculture. So at the end of the day, they can provide successful food production upon which we all need. So with that, I'd like to turn it back to you, Rod.
Thanks, Jason. And reporters and members of the media, this reminder, if you have a question for any of our guests, please press *1 on your telephone touch tone pad. Let's start with a question directed more towards you, Chief Weller, as well as you, Scott, in reference to what this might look like on the ground level. So I'll give you the option of picking a region of the country, whether it's on the coast where we see more specialty crops or more in the middle of the country where we see more row crops, what a pollinator, what resources might be available, what types of pollinator plants will be available, what kind of conservation practices will be available through this technical assistance.
Chief Weller, do you want to take it first, and then I can add on?
Sure. So I guess starting with the Northern Great Plains. So with this expansion of this partnership, we are actually going to be co-investing together, General Mills and us, into Xerces Society. Xerces Society is going to hire 6 additional of these biologists that are going to be then located in our states. So in the Northern Great Plains, that will include Minnesota and North Dakota. And in those locations, they're going to be working across the multiple states there, Wisconsin, South Dakota, Montana. So they're not just located just specifically with those 2 states. But in the Northern Great Plains, it's a critical flyaway area for monarch butterflies, for example. It's a part of the central flyway, it's part of their annual migration. But it's also crucial grounds for honeybee populations as they go through their migrations across the United States. The beehive folks set up shop, and they depend upon high-quality forage and habitat in the Northern Great Plains for honeybee populations. And so it's critical then that we provide timely, effective service for producers in that region of the country, in those states, if they want to provide for improved health of their pastures, for their livestock, for example. What these folks can help do is work with those individual livestock operations and identify what would be appropriate seed mixtures if they want to refresh or reseed their pastures, how to provide for high-quality forage for their livestock that's going to be safe and nutritious and economic for their livestock operations, but also look at their seed mixtures when they are reseeding or replanting their pastures, what are also high-quality forage opportunities for honeybee populations as well as for monarchs. And then within row crop operations in that part of the country, again, whether it's going to be part of their turn rows, their buffers, edge-of-field buffers, forested areas, or set-aside areas of the farm where they're not planting into to production agriculture. Again, what are going to be some appropriate seed mixtures that you can provide for both monarch and honeybee, as well as other appropriate pollinator mixes using native plantings as well as introduced plantings that will provide for good, high-quality habitat for the native pollinator populations, as well as for some of these key focal species that are important to agriculture.
Great. And just to add on to that, I think that's extremely comprehensive. I think dialing it down, what the Xerces Society has found from almost a decade of working with NRCS to date is that farmers really do care about the environment. They really do care about the landscape that they manage, and that they hunger for information on how to both better manage these lands for the environment, but also how that management can benefit them through greater pollination. And what the Xerces Society does, working with NRCS, is to bring the resources and training needed by these farmers to install habitat. As I said, a buffet of flowers, for instance, throughout the entire growing season, a hedgerow that has flowering shrubs that can be next to an apple orchard, or other practices that can increase the diversity of plants adjacent to these crops, attracting pollinators and other beneficial insects that then will help pollinate the crops that are on site. So at the end of the day, what these people will be able to do is really work with individual farmers to provide the assistance that they need to put in practices that will be beneficial for both the pollinators and for the farmers. You know, this is something that NRCS has done for decades. This NRCS is an amazing agency because they've really been able to come up with a great system of working with farmers to provide the technical assistance they need. Xerces just folds in to help to bolster that when it comes to pollinators and other beneficial insects, and as well as the other wildlife that benefit from that. So hopefully that gives you a little better picture of how this will work.
NRCS Chief Jason Weller, Scott Black from the Xerces Society, and Jerry Lynch of General Mills joining us on the phone lines today, you as well, and reporters and members of the media wishing to ask a question of any of our guests, please press *1 on your telephone touch-tone pad. We go to Jerry Lynch with General Mills. Give us, I guess, the flavor, the dialogue between the food processing industry in terms of what needs to be done to protect pollinator habitat and what the industry as a whole, as well as specific examples such as what your company is doing to, in partnership or standalone, to help create stronger pollinator habitats.
Yeah, thanks, Rod. What we have found, similar to what both Chief Weller and Scott have mentioned, is that farmers are very open to putting habitat into their farming operations because they care a lot about the land that produces the food that comes off their farms. And so what we have seen in working mostly with our suppliers who then work directly with farmers is a great willingness to experiment, looking at each individual farming situation and how they can best bolster pollinator habitat in the context of the farm, either for productivity of the plants, such as almonds or tomatoes that they're growing, or because they just know that it's better overall for the ecosystem around their farming operation. And they're pretty excited about it. Pollinators are one of those things that are pretty intuitive to understand. Certainly most farmers understand their importance as well as consumers do. So we see a great receptiveness there, and have just been really encouraged by the partnerships that we have on the ground.
And let's go to the phone lines with a question from Gene Johnston of Successful Farming Magazine. Gene, good afternoon.
Thank you. I have a question for Jerry Lynch, somewhat of a follow-up there, but you indicated that several of your business units are most directly impacted by the pollinator issue. Can you give us some specific examples of maybe what you're feeling? Are you already feeling ingredient shortages or things that are directly related to this pollinator decline? And is it impacting business already?
So thanks for the question. We don't see a direct link to shortages of any ingredients to date. But we're obviously concerned about the decline in pollinators. But we do have businesses that are very directly dependent on pollinators. So some of the brands that I talked about, for instance, Honey Nut Cheerios or Cascadian Farm uses honey in them. Cascadian Farm and Annie's products use both honey and nuts in their products. Muir Glen is a line of tomatoes that, pollinators are critical in the development and growth of tomatoes. So all of those are businesses that have very specifically at the brand level stepped forward and wanted to get involved in one way or another, some of them very directly through some cause marketing efforts and working with directly with suppliers in their supply chain.
Question of the day to Chief Weller, and we can also address this to all of our guests on the phone lines, the importance of partnerships in addressing the pollinator health issue. And Chief Weller, of course, you're involved with a lot of public-private partnerships through NRCS and conservation and such. So we'll start with you in terms of painting the picture of how important these partnerships are, maybe even examples outside of the one that you're announcing today.
Well, thanks, Rod. As I said a little bit earlier in my remarks, we'll never have the resources, most specifically starting with just the boots on the ground, the professionals in the field, which is so critical. And so because literally every farm has different needs and they have different resource challenges, so whether it's their soils or irrigation water, their input costs, energy needs, their climate, grain prices. There's so many variables that producers are trying to manage through. Having professionals there, whether in the public sector or in the private sector, to really help them with that expertise is critical. And so provide options and solutions for producer on how to really more effectively manage their operation to minimize loss and maximize production and profit, to me really is what sustainable agriculture is about. And so big picture, what this partnership today is about is that expanding the capacity in the ground to advance sustainable agriculture. Now, sustainable agriculture means a lot of things to different people, so I don't want to necessarily mix up this partnership specifically about that moniker, but to me really it is about expanding boots on the ground and technical assistance, one-on-one consultative support for producer when they're making their very difficult year-over-year choices and decisions on how to stock their pastures and range areas or what to crop when they're growing for grain production. Having that expertise, local expertise and local knowledge is critical. But there's also the financial component when producers need to implement conservation. A lot of conservation will have on-farm benefit, but in some cases it could be for habitat needs, it could be for water quality, water quantity needs. Sometimes the benefits aren't directly accrue to that farming operation, and so there is a need for a broad array of partners to come in and provide some financial support, some incentives for producer to not have to pay the full freight of the cost. And sometimes we're going to help share in the cost, not pay 100% of the cost, but share in the cost of the implementation of that conservation. And so we at NRCS the last several years have been really focused on building and broadening the public-private partnership network. So when traditional partners like soil and water conservation districts and conservation non-governmental organizations have been core partners with our agency going back 8 decades, but increasingly we realize that's not going to be enough because of the growing needs from climate change to expanding urban areas and pressures that land development puts on rural lands and agricultural lands. There are just so many demands and challenges that we really need to broaden our network and array of partners. And so that's why I'm really excited about our growing partnership with the private sector, with great companies like General Mills and other agribusinesses and food retailers, as well as other units of government, state and local government, water utilities, municipalities, and philanthropic investors who are looking to do impact investments. We at NRCS have been really trying to think outside the box and push the envelope a little bit on expanding the array of partners to do this kind of work like we're talking about today with pollinators. But it can also be for other species. It can be for air quality. It could be for forest health. You name it. There's huge opportunities to bring more organizations to the table who really are all interested on one thing, and that's the sustainable production of food and fiber. And so to get the job done, we're going to have to be smarter about working together. And partnerships like what today we're talking about are exactly the right approach, the way we need to work smarter together going forward.
And reporters and members of the media, thank you for your questions today and for all of you in the listening audience for listening into today's broadcast. And we'll turn it over to our guests for closing thoughts. We'll start with Scott Black, Jerry Lynch, and then Jason Weller.
Yeah, just closing and to add on to what Chief Weller just said, partnerships are vital. If we really want to conserve wildlife and help the environment, as Chief Weller said, we have to work with private landowners. And to work with private landowners, we really need to work in partnership with these private landowners and the agencies that serve them. And, we need to reach beyond just our normal partnerships to reach out broadly to audiences so that they understand the importance of pollinators, understand the threats of pollinators, and understand how we can better grow our food and provide for not just the pollinators, but the other animals that we really share this land with. So I think, an example is Xerces coming in with specific knowledge on how to manage landscapes for the benefit of pollinators and other beneficial insects, and NRCS, who has decades of experience in working on working lands on a myriad conservation projects. We can work together to amplify each other's efforts and really increase the amount of work that we can get done. And then with General Mills, with a company that produces food for millions upon millions of people, to have a partnership where we can go in with their supply chain and improve how they manage for pollinators within those agricultural habitats, and then promote that through their efforts with their customers. This is a way, again, to truly amplify conservation. So I think this is an incredible partnership. It is built on years of already working together, but allows us to really take this effort to the next level. And I think it is what we need to do if we're going to meet the challenge of conserving our environment.
Thanks, Scott, and thanks, Chief Weller, for being on the call today. And the ingredients that we use in our food depends on a healthy environment. So the right thing for the planet is the right thing for our business, and we couldn't be having the scale of impact that we'd like without great partners. What we can bring to the table is we can bring our supply chain to the table. But we really need the very unique technical expertise that a Xerces society brings to the table. We really need the partnership of NRCS, their technical expertise and support, and most importantly, their deep relationships with farmers on the ground who can help to coach, implement, and guide practices that will help support pollinator health. So this kind of partnership is critical. I think you'll only see more of these types of partnerships in the future, because it's what's essential for the type of sustainable food production that we'll need well into the future. So thank you.
Well, my thanks to both of you. Like I said, really proud of and excited by the partnership, and this is just an example of the way we need to do business going forward. And it's really leveraging all of the organizations on the call here today, from the private sector supply chain and its network and its relationships with other companies and with its suppliers, and also really just setting the standard and the expectation and setting the pace, which I think is really what's needed to bring more corporations and more partners to the table to see what General Mills is doing and their leadership, which I think should be commended and highlighted. But then the Xerces Society, which has a long, proud history of really good conservation and having that core scientific technical capacity, which is really vital for us, which we need to help train up our field folks, but also then just expanding the boots on the ground, providing more timely, better service for producers when they come in our doors and ask for some help. We don't always have the capacity, the people there that can help them, because they are spread thin. And so the more professionals we can get, whether they're going to be NRCS employees or private sector or partner people, it doesn't matter. They're all going to be in the same, wearing the same hat, wearing the same boots, getting out in the field and providing that one-on-one support. And so I'm really excited to see where this partnership goes from here on. So thank you both for your opportunity in bringing this to us.
And to all and to all of our guests, thank you. This is Rod Bain from the USDA Radio Studios in Washington, D.C., wishing you all a great day.